Welcome to Sinister Storytime at the 80 Slasher Library. I'm your host, the 80 Slasher Librarian. Today's selection, Halloween, The Scream Factory, Chapter 4. The old Myers place looks harmless enough, sort of, Lori thought as they pulled up in front. A faded Miller Realty sign hung in what used to be the front yard, now only a desolate, lifeless scrap of land. Most of the windows had been boarded up and strips of white paint peeled from the wood like skin shedding off a snake. The moonlight cast an eerie yellow light on the two-story house as Lori stared in awe. The house had appeared almost normal from a distance, but as she looked closer she felt repulsed by its presence, as if it were a giant, fat, black insect. She pointed at the for sale sign, which creaked on its hinges. Can you imagine living here? What if the stories were true? What if they never recovered his body? Jake stroked his blonde hair away from his face. It's been for sale ever since I've lived up here. I've seen 2 or 3 families move out just as fast as they moved in. No one can stand it in there. The real estate company comes by every year to clean it up a little, but the local kids always vandalize it and break the windows faster than they can be replaced. Jake paused, lowering his voice for effect. They say it's the entrance to hell. A splintered wooden shutter banged in the wind in the tiny attic of the house, making the girls jump unexpectedly. Jake pointed. This is where it all started. That's the room he killed her in on Halloween night. Killed. Sally shivered as she glanced at the window. Okay, we've seen it now. Let's come back in the daylight. I don't like this place. Matt's adrenaline was pumping furiously as he looked at the creepy old house. Not wanting to look like a wimp in front of his girlfriend, he opened the door of his Jeep and stepped out. Come on, Jake. Give me the grand tour. Sally pleaded. Matt, I really don't think you should go in there. Matt laughed nervously. Yeah, I'll bet Michael Myers is in there waiting for me. You girls just stay out here. We'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to prove to you guys once and for all that there's nothing here to be afraid of. Sally and Lori huddled close to the Jeep as they watched Matt and Jake disappear around the back of the house. Lori whispered to Sally, Well, what do you think about Jake? He's pretty cute, isn't he? Sally chewed her nails as she stared into the darkness, feeling a little worried about Matt. I never really noticed him before, but he seems nice if you like the, dark, mysterious type. I like it all right, Lori said breathily. But what do you mean by dark? His hair is almost as blonde as mine. Sally imitated Jake's voice. Follow me, and I'll show you the bloodstains on the wall. Lori giggled. He's just trying to be friendly and show us a good time. Do you think he likes me? Are you kidding? Did you see the way he was looking at you with those intense eyes? Sally asked. He was? Really? Lori beamed, her heart feeling light. Thoughts of Jake's gorgeous face swept freshly through her mind. Matt followed Jake around the side of the yard to the rotted back porch steps, his heart pounding with excitement and fear. What was really inside this house, he wondered. The window on the back door was boarded up. Jake pulled and twisted the doorknob. Damn, somebody must have locked it. Matt teased. Do you come here often? I don't hang out here or anything, if that's what you mean, Jake answered, feeling the awkward tension between him and Matt. They came from totally different worlds. Matt was Haddonfield's most popular jock, and Jake, well, he was just different. What am I doing here? He thought. He smiled to himself, remembering that Lori was waiting for them. He wondered if he had even the slightest chance with her. Matt peered through the boards over the dusty kitchen window, feeling a wave of relief now that they didn't actually have to go inside. Matt's body suddenly stiffened and he jerked away from the window. Let's go, Jake, now. What? What did you see in there? Jake asked, scrambling to peer inside the window. Matt's face had gone pale. He was walking backward away from the house. Jake rubbed some dust away from the window with his sleeve to get a clear look inside. He gasped. What the? The limp body of a black dog lay in a sickening pool of congealed blood on the kitchen floor. A pair of dead, glassy eyes stared back at Jake, making his skin crawl. Around the carcass were scattered bits of flesh and blood-caked fur, which appeared to have been ripped from the gaping gash in the animal's neck. Across the faded, peeling kitchen wallpaper stretched bloody, hand-scrawled letters, which could be read clearly. even in the darkness. They spelled out the word revenge. Jake squeezed his eyes shut and turned to Matt. Matt, did you see what was written in there? Matt was still walking backward in shock. Pure evil seemed to pour through the very walls. Look out! Jake screamed. Matt tumbled backward down the rotting steps and landed with a hard thud on the muddy ground below. Jake rushed to his side. Matt, are you okay? Talk to me, man. Matt lifted his head from the ground, still startled by the fall. What happened? Come on, let's get out of here, Jake said. Matt sat there in a daze, trying to brush the mud off his clothes, which only made the soil sink deeper into the fabric of his jeans. He stared at Jake for a moment, his eyes becoming cold with anger. That was a really sick prank. Wait until I tell the guys about this at school, man. Damn, you're crazy. What are you talking about? I had nothing to do with that, Jake yelled. We've got to report this. Let's call the police. They stared at each other for a moment. Jake broke the uncomfortable silence. What? You really think I did this? Yeah, right. My bike just happened to break down, and you just happened to drive by and offer me a ride, and then I talked you into coming up here to show you this? You're wrong, Matt. Dead wrong. I'm out of here. Matt rubbed his head, feeling like he was going to be sick as he thought it over. Was Jake capable of something like this? The coincidence was nearly impossible for him to have planned it. Matt shook his head, feeling confused. Wait a minute, stop, he said. Jake kept walking. Matt continued. Hey, I'm sorry. I guess you couldn't have planned it. It's just that I don't really know you, and everyone at school says, never mind. Jake whirled around to face Matt. What do they say? That I'm crazy? That I never talk to anyone? That I'm a loner? His voice sounded hurt. Let me ask you a question. Do you always listen to what other people say? Do you always follow the crowd? Matt didn't like being wrong, but he was truly sorry for blaming such an awful thing on Jake. But if Jake didn't do it, who did? The thought made his blood run cold. Matt answered, No, as a matter of fact, I don't always follow the crowd, and I don't always believe everything they say. Matt's serious expression melted as he held out his hand. Help me up already, he said. Jake's anger faded as he pulled Matt up to his feet. Let's get out of here. We can call the police from my house. No, Matt said. It was probably just some sick college prank. Besides, I don't want to spend the next 48 hours being interrogated under bright lights. He placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. Don't say anything to the girls about this. I don't want to scare them. Jake protested. What about the riding and the dead dog? That wasn't here last time I came here. What if... In his mind, he was thinking, what if Michael Myers... Matt placed a finger on his lips. Forget about it. Help me brush some of this dirt off my clothes before we go back to the car. Matt saw Jake looking at the house. He was nervous. No, frightened. Matt stared harder at Jake. He looked almost normal except for the black leather and long hair, Matt thought. He wondered what Jake would look like dressed in a polo shirt and a pair of khakis. He smiled. Maybe they were wrong about you, the kids at school. You're all right, Jake. The moonlight shone down upon the clearing in the woods behind the old house. Voices. Teenage voices were laughing and talking. And laughing. He'd heard them. The dark shape silently moved among the trees at the edge of the clearing to get a closer look. Through the darkness, he could see the girls, laughing. Lori and Sally leaned against the Jeep. Sally sighed. What's taking them so long? Maybe we should go find them. It's getting pretty cold out here. Lori was warm in her pink sweater. Why don't you wait in the car and I'll go get them? Sally agreed. Okay. After all, she didn't want to go near that awful house. Lori carefully made her way through the weeds and vines that covered the front lawn of the house, toward the front doorway. The old house creaked in the wind, sending chills down her spine. Matt? Jake? Are you guys in there? She called. There were no sounds from inside the house. Maybe I should go around back, she thought nervously. She took a deep breath and peered into the tiny window on the front door. Hello? Can you hear me? On her tiptoes, she strained to see into the dark house. A faint, rotting smell suddenly invaded her nostrils. Lori felt nauseous as her eyes adjusted to the darkness. Her eyes searched the tattered wallpaper inside and made out what appeared to be a... Before she could finish her thought, there was a loud crack, and she screamed, as a beam in the rotting wood porch below her feet suddenly crumbled, causing her to lose her balance and sink down several feet. Jake grabbed Matt by the arm. "Come on! I heard one of the girls screaming." Matt and Jake found Lori sobbing on the front porch as she struggled to free her leg from the jagged boards. "There's something in here," she cried. Help me get out of here, please." Help me, she thought. Jake pulled Lori's foot from the hole in the porch. "Shh, you're okay," he told her tenderly. He gently inspected her ankle. "It's just a scratch." Fear pumped through Matt's blood as he looked through the dust-caked window. What had she seen? He reminded himself that he was one of the strongest guys at school and could take on any grown man in a fistfight. He hoped he didn't look as scared as he felt, though. He strained to make out the dark shapes inside the house, his heart thudding heavily. There it was! He suddenly laughed with relief. "It's a jack-o'-lantern," he cried. "On the table in there, it's just a stupid pumpkin." Lori snuggled into Jake's surprisingly strong arms as he scooped her up from the porch. "What a night. I'm glad you're here," she breathed. Jake felt the electricity traveling through his body again as he held her tightly. "I'm glad you're here too. But it's all my fault for bringing you guys up here in the first place. I'm really sorry about all this, and..." Lori turned her head slightly to look back at the house, and her lips brushed against Jake's cheek. She lowered her eyes, embarrassed by the contact. "Don't be sorry, Jake." Jake carried Lori to the Jeep, following Matt's brisk pace. Sally stared at them as they piled in. "Look what the cat dragged in," Sally exclaimed. "Matt, what happened to you? Why are you all covered in mud?" "He slipped in a puddle of water, not a big deal," Jake quickly explained. "So, how was the tour? Did you guys find anything spooky in there?" Sally asked. Matt winked at Jake. "Nope, nothing in there but a lot of dust. Although Lori had quite an adventure, didn't ya?" he said, hoping to steer the conversation elsewhere. Lori rubbed her ankle. "Oh my gosh, Sally. I was so scared. I saw something in there and then I slipped and fell down through the porch. It was so freaky. But Matt said it was only a jack-o'-lantern, and then Jake came and saved me. That's all." Sally stared at her chattering friend, noticing a faint pink lipstick print on Jake's cheek. "Wow, sounds like I missed all the excitement," she said. Lori laughed. "Yeah, it was pretty wild. You should have been there." "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm glad we're leaving that creep pit," Sally said. What was going on with Lori and Jake, she wondered. She hadn't seen Lori this excited in a very long time. Lori breathed in the delicious smell of Jake's leather jacket, still damp from the rain. "Hey, Jake, the three of us are having a big Halloween haunted house at City Hall this Friday. Do you want to help us this week with the decorations?" she asked. Matt laughed. "Watch out for these two girls, Jake. They'll work you to the bone if you're not careful." He glanced sideways at him. "But we really could use your help. Lori says you're an artist?" Jake was enjoying all the attention from his new friends, especially Lori. "Yeah, I'd love to help. I worked for the art department at the Haddonfield Theater for the last 3 summers, and can rig up some great props and special effects if you want. I'm also a musician, if you want a little live rock and roll." Lori was impressed. "Really? Wow. What instrument do you play?" she asked eagerly. Jake smiled. "Guitar. But I'm really a singer. I've been practicing with my band, Zen, in my garage studio since summer. We're getting pretty good, and I'm sure the guys in the band would love the chance to play a live gig, especially on Halloween." "Oh, this is perfect. A live band," Sally said, excitement glittering in her eyes. "Our party is going to be the best." "So, who's in your band?" Matt asked with a hint of sarcasm in his voice. "I don't know of any musicians around here except for the geeks in the school band." Jake answered. "I play with 2 guys that go to the university and a guy from Bluffwood High. You probably wouldn't know them." Matt pulled the Jeep into Jake's driveway. He still wasn't entirely sold on Jake, although he was interesting. A little weird, but interesting. Jake certainly wasn't the beer-drinking, belching jock type that Matt was used to hanging out with. In fact, Matt wasn't sure what type Jake was. Matt casually nodded his head. Thanks for the unusual outing. Jake gave Lori's hand a little squeeze. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, Lori. Bye, Sally. Catch you later, Matt. Thanks for the ride. Chapter 5. Matt swung the Jeep into Sally's driveway. The wind howled through the pine trees in the forest behind her house. Do you want to come in for a little while? Sally asked. Matt shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the mud on his clothes beginning to dry. No, I don't want your folks to see me like this. I'll see you tomorrow, babe, he said. He looked at Lori. Bye, Lori. Are you sure you don't want to ride home? Lori smiled. No, thanks. Sally and I have lots to talk about. Besides, my house is only 2 blocks away. Okay, then. I'll see you tomorrow, he said. Sally gave him a little kiss goodnight. Okay, call me later, sweetie. Matt grinned. You know I will. Lori followed Sally into the warm house. Sally's mom smiled at them from the kitchen table. There's spaghetti in the big pot if you girls are hungry. Thanks, Mom. I am like starving, Sally said. She plopped some spaghetti on 2 plates for them. Let's go eat in my room, she said. Sally cleared some clothes from the floor of her messy room and peeled off Matt's jacket. The girls fell onto Sally's canopy bed, stylishly covered with matching flowered pillows and a down comforter. So, what's the scoop on Jake Kovac? Sally asked excitedly. I would have never in a million years pictured the 2 of you together. Lori blushed. Well, we're not exactly together yet. Not together? What about the kiss you gave him and the way he was carrying you around as if you were some kind of princess? Hey, where'd you get the crazy idea that I kissed him? Lori laughed. Sally swallowed a bite of spaghetti. Princess Lori, lipstick prints never lie. I saw it on his face. So, was he a good kisser? Lori picked up a pillow and swung it playfully at her friend. I didn't kiss him, you dork. My lips accidentally touched his cheek. That's all. It's not like he held me passionately in his arms and planted a big one on my lips. Sally scrambled to pick up another pillow. Sure. Did you like it? Do you like him? Tell me the truth or I'll have to whack you with this bag of feathers. Lori squealed, ducking. Of course I like him. I just never told anyone, she laughed. Especially a big mouth like you. Sally swung again, giggling hysterically. Ooh, withholding information from your best friend. This means war. Lori jumped off the bed, armed with her pillow. The 2 girls laughed and shrieked as they took shots at each other. Small feathers floated and whirled through the air. The phone rang. Sally caught her breath and searched for the red heart-shaped phone beneath the clothing that was strewn across the floor. She picked up the receiver. Hello? Hello? I can't hear you. Is anyone there? Sally giggled, passing the receiver to Lori. She whispered, Listen to this. I think we've got an obscene caller. Lori pressed the phone to her ear and listened to the heavy breathing coming across the line. She handed the phone back to Sally, whispering, Just hang up. That's how you're supposed to handle calls like this. Sally spoke, ignoring Lori's advice. Hey, jerk, what's the matter? Can't you get a date? Lori protested. Sally, just hang up. Sally laughed into the phone. Your breathing is awfully sexy, but I already have a boyfriend. But maybe my friend Lori would be interested. Sally! Lori hissed, grabbing the phone and slamming down the receiver. Sally giggled. Well, you said you're not together with Jake yet. Lori looked at her angrily. Come on, Lore, I was just kidding around. Lori pouted. You're not very funny. The phone rang again. The 2 girls jumped, looking at each other, then at the phone. Sally reached for the phone. This time she was a little annoyed. This guy doesn't give up, she said. Hello, Matt? Is this you fooling around? Cut it out. The breathing through the receiver became heavier. Sally's face twisted in disgust as the raspy sound became a threatening growl. She hung up the phone, her hands shaking. Lori searched Sally's pale face for an answer. What did he say? What happened? Sally stared at the phone. He didn't say anything. It just made this sickening noise. It wasn't Matt either. Who would do this? It was probably one of Marcia's friends. Trying to scare you, Lori commented. Maybe you're right. It was just Marcia, Sally agreed. The mini-mall parking lot was empty except for the flickering neon sign of the convenience store. The shadowed shape stole one last glance at Sally's bedroom window across the street. He'd been watching them frolicking around on the bed, squealing. The bad girls had stopped laughing. Breathing heavily, he lurched away, disappearing into the dark forest behind the building, leaving the silver payphone cord twisted into a miniature noose. Lori picked up a pillow from the floor and tossed it back on Sally's bed. I'd better get going home now. My mom is probably wondering where I am. Do you want me to ask my mom to give you a ride home? After twisting your ankle and all? Sally offered. Lori smiled. No, I'm fine. Besides, some fresh air will do me good. It's been a wild day. Lori wanted to be alone with her delicious thoughts of Jake. Sally shrugged her shoulders. Okay, Lore, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye, Sally. Lori crossed the street at the convenience store and shivered as she walked down the sidewalk that ran along the edge of the forest. She'd walked home from Sally's house hundreds of times, and knew by memory alone where every buckle in the sidewalk was. She shivered as the icy wind howled through the trees. It felt like it was going to start snowing. She scanned through the day's events in her mind, over and over again, especially the part where Jake had held her in his arms. She imagined that he kissed her, and pictured his soft lips touching hers. She felt as if she were floating along. Tomorrow she would see him again. She could hardly wait. A branch crackled from the dark woods. Lori stopped suddenly, feeling as if eyes from the woods were watching her. She listened for a moment and heard nothing but the wind, but she still had the weird feeling that she was being watched. Her heart pounded as she thought about the horrible murders that had happened in those woods so long ago. She began walking briskly, anxious to get home. What if it was a stray wolf? Or what if crunch? The noise, now even closer than before, made her gasp. It was following her, stalking her. She began running. She could still hear the footsteps keeping pace with her, crushing the dense undergrowth beneath the trees in the blackness. Her heart pounded with fear as she quickly glanced over her shoulder. Ah! Lori's foot caught on a split in the sidewalk, and she suddenly felt herself falling. She landed roughly on the jagged, wet asphalt of the street. Pain shot through her leg as she lifted herself up, her heart feeling as if it were going to explode. She could see her house just up the street now. She winced from the pain as she stood on her feet, tears streaming down her cheeks. Just a few more yards and she'd be safely at home. The wind blew against her body as she ran toward her house, strands of hair whipping across her face. The footsteps were right next to her now. She could hear the heavy breathing of the thing in the woods, as if it were right over her shoulder. Suddenly a pair of headlights came up the road behind her. She whipped around, waving her arms for help. Stop! Help me! She cried. The blue sedan pulled to a stop. Lori saw that the driver was her dad. Oh, thank God you're here, Daddy! She scrambled into the passenger seat, breathless with relief. Her father was shocked, still wearing his business suit from the bank. Honey, what happened to you? Are you okay? He asked, looking at the blood on her knees. Lori glanced out the window into the darkness and saw a blur of something, running back into the woods. She pointed hysterically. Something was following me. Did you see it? Over there. It followed me all the way from Sally's house. I was running and I tripped, and then you came along. Her father strained frantically to see into the blackness. No, honey, I don't see anything. It was probably some kind of animal. His voice became firm. You could have been attacked or seriously hurt. I don't want you out walking this late at night ever again, young lady. You call your mother or me if you ever need a ride. Do you understand me? You scared me half to death. Lori sighed. Yeah, Dad, sorry. She stared into the forest as they drove up the street. Chapter 6. Lori woke up the next morning feeling as if a truck had hit her. Her muscles still ached, even after the Epsom salt bath she'd taken last night. She pulled herself out of bed and switched off the blaring alarm clock. Nothing was going to stop her from going to school today. The incident last night had faded a little from her mind. She laughed to herself, rationalizing that it must have been a stray dog following her. Lori carefully braided her long golden hair. She chose a low V-neck sweater and a pair of tight black jeans from her closet, an outfit she'd bought last winter, but hadn't had the nerve to wear. She looked at herself approvingly in the mirror as she applied a little deep red lipstick. Lori normally wore preppy, conservative clothes, but not today. She pictured herself on the back of his motorcycle, hugging him tightly. Matt and Sally spotted Lori in the corridor after lunch. Matt let out a long whistle. "Whoa, Lori, look at you!" Lori's face became almost red as her lipstick. "Hi, Matt. Hi, Sally. What do you think?" She twirled around. Matt gave her the once-over as only a guy could do. "If I wasn't dating your best friend, I'd..." Sally elbowed him in the ribs. "What he's saying is, Lore, you look absolutely gorgeous. Totally cool threads. What's the occasion?" she asked. Lori rolled her eyes. "What do you think? Remember? My physical science class next period? Somebody sits in front of me?" Matt laughed. "What? Are you going to be the exhibit? Get it? Physical science?" Sally sighed, glancing at Matt. "Just ignore the beast, Lori," she whispered. "Somebody is going to fall over backwards off his chair when he sees you. Hey, where were you at lunch? We missed you." Lori sighed. "I was in the library doing our history assignments. I thought I'd get it out of the way." "You finished it already?" Sally asked. "But how did you find out about the first settlers of Haddonfield at the school library?" Lori smiled. "I changed my mind and wrote about the signing of the Declaration of Independence instead. It was a lot easier." She handed the report to Sally. "Here, you owe me one. Hang on to it until Friday." Sally hugged her. "You're the greatest. Thanks, Lore." Matt joked. "Uh-oh, Lori. Slacking off in school. Radical change in appearance? This is serious warning sign. You've got to get help before it's too late." "Matt, would you please shut up?" Sally demanded. She smiled at Lori. "You look hot, girl. Go get him. That's an order." The bell rang, and Lori gave Sally a little salute as she walked down the hall. Lori felt all eyes upon her as she took her seat in class. She glanced around the room. Where was Jake, she wondered. The bell rang. The seat in front of her was empty. Lori opened her book and began reading the assignment. Jake opened the door quietly and slipped his Walkman off his head. His heart jumped when he saw Lori sitting there reading. He felt more self-conscious than ever. She was the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen. In fact, she looked like a model. Her slim legs stretched out from under the desk. Suddenly she looked up, her crystal blue eyes staring at him. She tossed her long, shiny braid over her shoulder as he awkwardly took his seat. He feared to turn around. What if she was just being nice yesterday? He felt her eyes on the back of his head. He'd wait and see how she acted. Lori touched his shoulder lightly, sending chills down his spine. She whispered, "Hi, Jake." He turned around to face her. "Hi, Lori," he said back. Her red lips curled at the edges. "How come you're late? Did you just get to school?" Lori noticed that his hand was wrapped in a white, sterile bandage. Jake shifted nervously in his seat. I was up late last night." "What happened to your hand?" she asked. The concern in her angelic voice sounded real. Maybe everything was okay. "Can you meet me after class?" he asked her. "I need to tell you something." The smell of his leather jacket was driving her wild. She couldn't tell by the hushed tone of his voice if he planned to give her good news or bad news. "Okay," she agreed. She stared at his blonde hair through the rest of class, unable to concentrate on the assignment. She wondered if he'd even noticed her drastic efforts to look good today. He seemed distant and distracted by something. What was he thinking? "I'm really crushing hard on him," she thought. Jake pretended to read from his textbook. The nervous tension built between them with every tick of the large wall clock. Lori's heart jumped as the bell rang, anxious for her private meeting with Jake. Lori followed Jake through the corridor, hustling with students. No doubt they were all staring at the couple. Jake led her outside to the grassy courtyard where they sat down on an iron park bench. Lori smiled nervously, trying to ease the tension. "So, what's going on, Jake?" "Nothing. His eyes darted around the lawn. "I just didn't think we should talk in class." "Well, here we are, all alone." she offered. He stared into her porcelain skin, still not believing that he was actually sitting here with her. I have something for you, Lori, he finally said. Lori was surprised. Really? What is it? Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out his Walkman. Here, there's a tape in here that I want you to listen to. Lori started to place the headphones over her ears, but he stopped her. No, listen to it later, he said. Lori wondered what was on the tape. So, are we still on for later? She asked. Jake felt relieved. You mean the haunted house? Yeah, if you're okay. She looked at his hand again. Are you still going to help me decorate? She asked. Wild horses couldn't keep me away, Lori, he said before thinking. He laughed. That sounded really corny, didn't it? Lori slid a little closer to him and whispered, They couldn't keep me away either. Thanks for the surprise. Meet us at City Hall after school. Lori clutched the Walkman in her hand. I've got to get to class. I'll see you later, Jake, she said. Lori rounded the corner and made her way through the crowded hallway toward her history class. She glanced over her shoulder to make sure Jake wasn't watching and placed the headphones of the Walkman on. She had 3 minutes before class started. Leaning against the wall, she pressed the play button. Sally waited anxiously for Lori to arrive in class so she could get the latest details about Jake Kovac. She could feel Marcia Miller staring at her from across the room, her eyes seething with hatred. Sally could not wait until Marcia found out about their party. They'd start inviting people tomorrow. Lori rushed in at the last moment, just before the bell rang, her hands shaking. Sally whispered, What's wrong with you? Lori pulled the Walkman off her head and handed it to Sally. Listen to this. Jake gave it to me. Mrs. Grubbs turned off the lights in the classroom and started a film about United States history. Sally slipped the Walkman on. Sounds of chains rattling and howling wolves filled her ears. Drums thumped faster and faster. Wild guitar and bass chords melted into an eerie melody. Jake's voice, his hauntingly beautiful voice, came in. The words of the song were, He's going to get you, he'll follow you home. He's been waiting and watching, you're never alone. He's out in the woods, he's been waiting for you. When he gets you alone, your young life is through. I'm the boogeyman baby and I'll never die. I'm the boogeyman baby and that's no lie. I'm the boogeyman baby, so don't even try to get away from me. Sally giggled, handing the Walkman back to Lori. It's good. It's weird, but good. This will be perfect for the Halloween party. Lori remembered that she hadn't told anyone about what happened in the woods last night. Could Jake have been the one who was following her? Could he have had enough time to cross town to follow her home? Lori thought about the bandage on Jake's hand. What had happened to him? Could he have fallen in the woods? Was he even in the woods? She wondered. Lori shivered. So, he gave you the tape. What else happened? Sally probed. Lori relaxed a little, thinking of Jake's kind eyes and gorgeous face. He wouldn't scare her like that. She realized that her imagination was working overtime, and she began looking forward to seeing him again. Nothing, she said. He's going to meet us later at City Hall to get started on the haunted house decorations. Okay, this has been chapters 4, 5, and 6 of Halloween, the Scream Factory. Again, I gotta say I'm enjoying the book so far. I actually like the characters, I'm invested in them, and I'm curious to see where the story goes. But the question is, was Jake the one following her, or was the dark shape the shape? Let me know in the comments section what you think. I'll be back tomorrow with a few more chapters of Halloween, the Scream Factory. I'm so glad we've got a Michael Myers book in the catalog now. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Before the outro plays, I want to leave y'all with a little outtake from my recording today. When I do these narrations, I do slip up from time to time. So I thought I'd share one with you, give you a quick little laugh maybe. It's always fun to make fun of yourself, and I'm going to let you hear one of my fuck-ups. Until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying thanks for listening. And don't bring your books late to the 80s slasher library. The late fees are killer. Sally waited anxiously for Lori to arrive in class, so she could get the latest details about Jake Kovac. She could feel Marcia Miller staring at her from across the room.